UFP, the United Federation of Podcasts.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
You're listening to Star Trek Weekly News. I'm Tony Robinson. In this week's news, can Discovery and Picard crossover? Section 31. When will it happen? All this and more coming right up. Can you imagine a crossover between Star Trek, Picard and Discovery? It's unlikely there would ever be a crossover, but what if they did it? The current executive producer of all future Star Trek TV projects, Alex Kurtzman, had to have some kind of a plan, and in a long revealing interview this week with Deadline, Kurtzman made it clear that before Star Trek Discovery even launched in 2017, he knew the future of Trek needed to be planned out with some patience. In recalling his meetings with CBS, Kurtzman said he told the network, "I think you have a universe here that is very underutilized, and a fan base that I think is hungry for a lot more. And I walked them through the plan of what I saw for the next 5 to 10 years of Trek. But with a decade of Trek loosely planned out in advance, it stands to reason that Kurtzman and company dreamed up a little bit of a connective tissue between these two shows. Of course, because everything is set in the same Star Trek universe, there's automatic connections between Discovery and Star Trek Picard, the upcoming show. And yet, because Disco happens in 2267, and now will warp to the 33rd century, and Picard happens in 2399, it seems like there might not be a lot of direct connections between the two shows. But wait a minute, if the same production teams are involved in all of these new Trek shows, wouldn't it make sense that some of the links between the shows would be more overt? Could there be some direct threads between Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery? Well, here are 5 sneaky ways Picard and Discovery could sync up with really big and surprisingly cool plot lines and character crossovers. Okay. So Alex Kurtzman has said many times now that rogue AI, known as Control, was neutralized in the season 2 finale of Discovery, but what if he was either lying or telling a half-truth? Obviously, Leland's comments about resistance is pointless sounded a lot like Borg mantra, resistance is futile, and nearly all the actors and writers dodged the Borg question while Discovery Season 2 was still airing. But the origin of Control had a very paradoxical, timey-wimey backstory that was never fully explained. Now, anyone who knows their Trek history will point out that the Borg can't have originated in the mid-23rd century because Voyager established they'd been around for centuries before that, and in the Delta Quadrant. Let's remember the greatest lesson Picard learned in All Good Things. Sometimes something that happens in the future can create the past. So if Control is the start of the Borg, and what is left of Control has ended up in the 33rd century with Discovery, that doesn't mean there couldn't be a roundabout way for the story to circle up with Picard as the 24th century becomes the 25th. Wibbly wobbly, Borgy wargy. In the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Discovery, all knowledge of the titular starship is made super classified, including, as Spock said, her spore drive. Now, in terms of getting people out of a tight situation, The spore drive is really handy insofar as the instantaneous travel across several light years is way more efficient than warp drive. The only trick is that it's not the most reliable tech, and in theory, by Picard's time, that technology has been totally outlawed. But could Picard be in search of a spore drive? The mysterious rescue armada mentioned in the teaser trailer could give us a hint. If Picard failed to evacuate everyone from Romulus, maybe he wants a way that a starship can be in one place 1 second and another in the blink of an eye. Over 100 years exist between the ending of Discovery Season 2 and the beginning of Star Trek Picard. At some point, it stands to reason that someone would have tried to recreate the spore drive again. After all, there are plenty of people who aren't in Starfleet who knew about it. Not to be that guy, but I've been saying this since before the first episode of Discovery even dropped. Because Picard had a super important mind meld with Sarek in the TNG episode Sarek, it stands to reason that Picard knows who Michael Burnham is simply because he has aspects of Sarek's memory in his own brain. So, what if Picard dreamt Sarek's memories? We know part of Sarek's katra is in Michael, but is a portion of it also in Picard? And, if so, could Picard communicate with Burnham regardless of the constraints of normal space and time? 2 pivotal episodes in Star Trek Discovery's second season dealt with the Klingon planet of Boreth. But of course, Boreth comes from the Next Generation episode Rightful Heir, in which the Klingons in the monastery make a clone of their messiah, Kahless. Discovery referenced this episode in 2 ways in Season 2. First, the episode in which Tyler drops off his baby on Boreth is called Point of Light, which is a line Kahless spoke to his true believers and told them which star system he would show up during his second coming phase. Second, Boreth was obviously a big deal in the episode in Through the Valley of the Shadow, where we learned that Captain Pike became aware of his own future and chose to go through with it anyway to save the Federation. When I spoke with Discovery writers Bo Yeon Kim and Erica Lippold this April, they told me that Worf certainly doesn't know about time crystals in TNG because Worf would not have been granted access to the part of Boreth's monastery that housed the crystals. But this also means that time crystals probably still exist on Boreth in the TNG era. And just because Worf didn't get to see any time crystals in 2369 doesn't mean Picard won't be able to get at some time crystals in 2399. Plus, if he has some of Sarek's memories, he probably already knows about them anyway. We're not really sure what the Federation will be like in the 33rd century future of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, but considering that Star Trek Picard is set further in the future of the Trek canon than any regular series or film has been to date, it could serve as a nice prologue for Season 3 of Discovery. And as we all know, the Picard series is of course a sequel of sorts to The Next Generation, but it's also a sequel to Star Trek Discovery after a fashion. And because Discovery will speed centuries past the time of Picard in its 3rd season, Star Trek Picard is in a unique position as both a sequel to the past of Star Trek and at the exact same time a prequel to its future. That story appeared on Den of Geek by Ryan Britt on June 21 this year. So we've had all that information about Star Trek Season 3 and Captain Picard and, hey, Star Trek Section 31, the spin-off with Michelle Yeoh, is going to start filming after Discovery's Season 3. Star Trek Discovery's spin-off Section 31 is set to kick off filming after the mainline show's 3rd season, the showrunner has confirmed. The 2nd season of Discovery concluded earlier this year, seeing Michael Burnham and the crew sent barreling 950 years into the future through a wormhole. The show is expected to return next year, and it looks like planned spin-off Section 31 which revolves around Philippa Georgiou, is set to follow suit. Speaking to Deadline's Crew Call podcast, Discovery showrunner Alex Kurtzman offered an update on the spin-off's schedule. Erica Lippold and Boy Kim, who are two of our writers on Discovery, are breaking story on it right now, and the plan is to shoot that the second we're done with Season 3. In a statement announcing the spin-off, Kurtzman said, "Michelle has shattered ceilings, broken boundaries, and astonished us with her grace and gravitas for decades. As a human, I adore her. As an actor, I revere her. Erica and Bowie are remarkable, exciting writers who bring a fresh perspective to the world of Star Trek, and we're all thrilled to explore the next wild chapter in the life of Captain Philippa Georgiou." And Kurtzman also mentioned again Captain Picard, stating, "A lot has happened to Jean-Luc Picard in the intervening years. He's had to deal with some new things and some old things. Both things collide together, and he's made choices that he's not necessarily feeling great about." And we learned this week of the passing of Peter Allen Fields, one of the minds behind some of Star Trek's most powerful episodes. Peter Allen Fields, the television screenwriter who helped bring some of the most iconic and dramatic chapters of The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine to life, has sadly passed away. News of Fields' death was first conveyed by Deep Space Nine showrunner and longtime collaborator Ira Stephen Bear, who offered condolences to Fields' family and friends. "Sad to report," said Ira, "writer-producer Peter Allen Fields passed away today. He was a friend of mine. All of you Star Trek fans can say a prayer. All of you fans of 60s and 70s television can say one too." A writer and producer with credits across everything from the likes of The Man from U.N.C.L.E. to Xena, Warrior Princess, to The $6 Million Man, Fields is going to be best remembered by fans of Star Trek The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. Fields co-wrote a total of 13 episodes for the franchise in his long association with it, 3 for TNG and 10 for DS9, and among them are some of the best remembers and heart-wrenching episodes of each respective series. For Next Gen, Fields contributed to Loxana Troy-centric episodes Half a Life and Cost of Living in seasons 4 and 5, but also most notably to one of the most lauded episodes of the show, Season 5's The Inner Light, with Morgan Gendel, the tragic tale of Captain Jean-Luc Picard finding himself living a life he never knew he had on an alien world, attempting to chase his way back to the Enterprise. For Deep Space Nine, Fields' contributions were myriad, but highlights include Duet, the remarkably powerful episode where Major Kira finds her beliefs challenged when she's confronted with a former Cardassian slave camp worker dying of a terminal disease. For The Uniform, which explored the dangerous depths Captain Sisko was willing to go to hunt down terrorist fringe group the Maquis, and In the Pale Moonlight, arguably one of the finest hours of Star Trek ever written, a compelling, haunting examination of the true cost behind maintaining Roddenberry's utopia in a time of debilitating, catastrophic war. Our thoughts are with Fields' family and friends in this sad time. That contribution by James Whitbrook at Gizmodo. Well, that's all we have for you this week, but before we leave you, we have some information coming in from the Federation, and it seems that the Federation wishes to dispel the rumours that are circulating regarding future events causing changes in the past. The Federation says that such events are unlikely, and that is why today they are launching a 5-year mission on the flagship Enterprise under the command of Captain Chekhov to investigate such a phenomenon occurring. I'm Tony Robinson, and thank you again for listening to Star Trek Weekly News. Star Trek Weekly News comes to you from the United Federation of Podcasts, or UFP as we like to call it, and this podcast and all our other top quality podcasts can be found on our website, which